All right, so ready to kind of jump down the rabbit hole. Like, what if everything we know, everything we experience is just some crazy complex computer program, run by some super advanced
It's a
civilization?
total mind bender, right?
It really is. And that's what we're going to dive into today, this whole idea of simulated reality. We're going to use Nick Bostrom's simulation argument as a kind of framework. And trust me, it gets pretty wild. Like, we're talking about what advanced civilizations might be able to do, the limits of technology, and even the nature of consciousness itself.
Yeah. And before we, go too far, I think the first question is, can you even simulate something as complex as consciousness?
Right. I mean, this isn't like some simple video game we're talking about.
Exactly.
This is like full-on reality simulation with emotions and sensations, everything, the whole experience. And to do that, you'd need some serious computing power. Like, just to simulate one human brain for 1 second, it's 10 to the power of 17 operations. Think about that. 100 million billion operations.
And that's just for one brain.
One brain.
Now, imagine trying to simulate all of human history. I mean, billions of people interacting over thousands of years. We're talking astronomical numbers here. A computer that could do that. I mean, that would need to process more operations than there are stars in the observable universe.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so just the scale of the computer you'd need, it's almost impossible to imagine.
Right. I mean, it seems that way, at least with what we understand about technology and NW.
Right.
But see, one of the assumptions that the simulation argument relied on is that technology doesn't stop advancing.
Okay.
So what if there are civilizations out there millions of years ahead of us? I mean, their technology would look like magic to us.
Okay, so like civilizations that could harness the energy of entire stars, right?
Exactly. We're talking like a type 2 or even type 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale.
And with that much power, I guess, building a computer that could simulate consciousness might not be so crazy. Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. But even if they could harness all that energy, wouldn't it take forever to build something like that?
Well, what if they have technologies we haven't even thought of? Imagine future quantum computers.
Right.
I mean, calculating at speeds we can't even imagine. Or what about that theoretical megastructure, a Matryoshka brain? It's like a giant computer built around a star using all its energy for computation.
A Matryoshka brain. No, that's an image, right? And I
Yeah.
guess if you had a computer that powerful, you could run not just one simulation, but thousands, maybe even millions of them
Precisely.
at the same time.
Which leads to a question, though, a pretty big one. Would any civilization even survive long enough to reach that level? I mean, look at us. We've barely started, and we've already created weapons that could wipe us all out.
Yeah, that's the whole great filter idea, isn't it? Like, is there some barrier out there that prevents civilizations from reaching that godlike level of technology?
Exactly. It's like a cosmic speed bump, and we have no idea what it is, or if we've already passed it.
Maybe it's nuclear war, or an asteroid, or climate change, or something we haven't even thought of. Maybe every civilization eventually makes some technology that destroys it, like some black hole generator gone wrong or something.
Something like that. So even if they could build a simulation, would they even want to? I mean, what's the point of simulating a bunch of humans? What would they get out of it?
Like, why bother? Why would they simulate us? That's a great question. And that brings us to another big assumption with this whole simulation thing, understanding the motivations of super advanced beings. I mean, can we even begin to comprehend what entities millions of years ahead of us would want? It's like trying to explain the internet to an ant. They just wouldn't get it.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And we have to consider the possibility that what we see as pointless or even evil could be totally logical to them. Their motivations might be so beyond us, we can't even speculate.
So we could be looking at the actions of these super beings and be completely clueless,
Oh boy.
like ants looking at a human amusement park.
Exactly. We can't assume they'd be driven by the same things we are.
Right. But okay, let's just say for a minute that some super civilizations actually do create simulations. Maybe for research, maybe for fun, who knows. But
Yeah.
if they can create one, why stop there? Why not make a ton of them?
Well, that brings us to the final and possibly the most mind-blowing assumption of this whole simulation argument.
Okay, hit me with it. What's the last piece of the puzzle?
The idea that if they're running simulations, they're probably running a lot of them. Think about if you had basically limitless computing power.
Right.
Why just make one simulated universe? You could create billions, each with its own unique history, its own set of parameters, its own, cast of characters.
So you're saying there could be a whole multiverse of simulations with trillions of simulated beings totally unaware they're part of some giant experiment.
And here's the thing. If there are that many simulated universes full of conscious beings, then the vast majority of conscious beings that have ever existed
Yeah.
would be simulated. Not real in the way we think of it.
Hold on, let me get this straight. Are you saying statistically it's more likely that WE are the simulated ones than the original ones?
You got it. If you're a conscious being in a universe where simulations are common,
Mm-hmm.
odds are you're probably living in one.
So we've kind of laid out this whole simulation argument thing,
Yeah.
the massive computing power, these super civilizations with tech we can't even imagine, the whole great filter idea. But honestly, the thing that really sticks with you is that last part, the idea that if these simulations are out there, we're probably in one. It makes you question everything.
It really does, doesn't it?
Mm.
It's like, if we are living in a simulation, what does that even mean? Like, for us,
Yeah.
for our purpose, for, the meaning of life. Does it make our experiences less real? What about our relationships?
Mm.
Big questions, right? And not easy answers.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. I mean, thinking that our whole existence might just be some code in some alien computer, that's got to be kind of terrifying for some people.
I can understand that, yeah. But then, for some people, it's liberating. Like, hey, the rules of reality, maybe they're not so fixed after all. But here's the thing I always come back to. Even if we are in a simulation, it's still our reality. It's the only one we know.
Yeah, I get that. It's not like we can just unplug and suddenly be in the real world. You know what I mean? We've got to live our lives, make choices, find meaning in the world we've got. Don't go burning down your house looking for glitches in the matrix.
Exactly. I mean, our experiences,
Yeah.
they're real. Our emotions, they're real. The relationships we build, they matter. Being in a simulation, if we are, it doesn't change any of that.
Right.
I think what it does do is make us think harder about, like, what is reality? And what's our place in all of this?
Yeah, it definitely gives you a whole new perspective. And then, of course, there's the big question. If we are in a simulation, who are these simulators? What are they like? Why did they create us? Are they watching us right now? It's like we're all on some cosmic reality TV show.
Well, some questions we might never have answers to. It's like that ant analogy, trying to understand these beings that could create a simulation like ours. It's
Yeah.
like an ant trying to understand why we build skyscrapers.
Yeah, their thoughts, their goals, they could be so far beyond us.
Exactly.
But still, it's fun to think about. I bet there are people out there analyzing every little weird thing that happens, like, aha, a glitch in the matrix.
I'm sure. But it's important to remember, this whole simulation argument is built on a lot of assumptions. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know for sure that consciousness can even be simulated. We don't know if civilizations can survive long enough to get to that level. And we don't know if they'd even want to create simulations in the first place.
So for now, it's more of the thought experiment than a scientific theory.
Right.
But it's a thought experiment with some seriously big implications.
For sure. I mean, it takes us from science into philosophy, ethics, maybe even spirituality. What does it mean to be human? If this is a simulated universe, what are the limits of what we can know? These are questions that have been around forever. And this simulation idea just adds another layer to it all.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, if we could prove we were in a simulation, would we even want to? Would we want to know who's running it, why they created us? Wouldn't that be kind of messed up?
That's a great question. Would that knowledge make us feel free? Or would it just be terrifying, like realizing we're just pawns in some game we don't understand?
Right. It makes you think, does just asking these questions, does that have an effect?
On the simulation.
Yeah, like, are we somehow influencing the outcome by even being aware of the possibility?
Now, that's an interesting thought. It's like suddenly we're aware of the code running in the background, and just that awareness changes how it works.
Maybe the simulators are watching us right now, like taking notes on how we react to this whole simulation idea, data collection.
Wow. Okay, down the rabbit hole we go. But I think that's the coolest part of all of this. It pushes us to think about stuff we'd never even consider otherwise.
Right.
It's like this simulation argument, it's a test to see how we react when we're faced with the unknown.
Exactly. And maybe how we react tells those simulators something about us.
Yeah, like our ability to think critically, to deal with uncertainty, to find meaning even when things get really weird.
Okay, well, I think our listeners have a lot to think about. But before we wrap this part up, I got to throw out one last thought, and it's a bit of a creepy one.
Oh, I love a good creepy thought. Lay it on me. What have you got?
What if this fear of being unplugged, what if that's just another part of the simulation?
Hey, what do you mean?
Like the very idea that we might be in a simulation and all the anxiety that comes with that, maybe it's programmed in intentionally.
You mean like a way to keep us in line?
Exactly. It's like a built-in safety mechanism to keep us from rebelling, to keep us from trying to break free.
That's both brilliant and scary. Like a simulated version of Stockholm Syndrome.
Right. We're so afraid of what's outside the simulation, we never even try to escape.
It's a way to keep us playing the game.
Yeah.
Keep us from getting bored, keep us under control.
Maybe those glitches in the Matrix people talk about, maybe they're not glitches at all.
What are they then?
Maybe they're clues.
Clues.
Yeah, planted there to keep us hooked.
Oh, wow. So how do we know what's real anymore if even our fears are part of the program? This is making my head spin.
I know, right? Like being trapped in a hall of mirrors.
But I think that's the point, isn't it? This simulation argument, it's not supposed to give us answers. It's supposed to make us think,
Yeah.
make us question everything, make us realize that maybe we don't see the whole picture.
So what are we supposed to do? Just accept that we might be in a simulation and never know for sure?
I wouldn't say that. Even if we are in a simulation, our lives still matter. You know,
Yeah.
our relationships, our search for meaning, all of that is still real.
Okay, I like that.
It just adds another layer to it. And who knows, maybe searching for truth is even more meaningful if we are in a simulation.
Yeah, it's like even if we don't know who made the game or why, it's still worth playing.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, by asking these questions, by exploring all of this, we're proving that we're worthy players.
All right, I think that's a good place to shift gears a bit. We've definitely given everyone a lot to think about.
We have. And when we come back, we're going to tackle an even bigger question. Free will. If we're in a simulation, do we really have any control over our choices?
All right, so we've talked about living in a simulation, who might be running it, and even if our fear of being unplugged is like part of the whole thing. But there's one huge EE question we haven't really gotten into. What does all this mean for free will? I mean, if we're just lines of code in some massive computer, do we really have any control over our choices?
It's the big one, right? Like it takes this whole debate about free will versus determinism and throws in a whole new curveball. I mean, if it's a simulation, are the simulators controlling everything we do? Or did they create this system where, you know, it runs on its own and we actually, DO, has some choices?
So is it like, are we puppets on strings? Or are we more like characters in a video game, you know, making choices within the game's rules? But even in a game, there's tons of possibilities, right? Players can be creative, make crazy decisions, even like break the game sometimes.
Totally. Even in a structured environment, you can have all these different experiences, outcomes, choices. It's like take a video game. Even with all its rules and limits, players can still find ways to play differently. They make choices you wouldn't expect. Sometimes they even find ways to, like, hack the game.
So even if it is a simulation, there's still room for being creative, you know, for genuine connection, for going against the grain. Does that mean, like, every time we make a truly free choice, we're actually hacking the simulation?
I think it makes those moments even more meaningful, you know? Like, if we are just code, then every time we do something unexpected, something creative, or show real love, real compassion, it's like we're beating the system.
I like that, like constantly pushing the boundaries of the simulation, fighting against those limits. A kind of rebellion, even if the simulators don't even notice.
Or maybe they do notice. Maybe that's the whole point. What if the reason for this whole simulation is to see what we do with the freedom we have? You know, to see how we interact, how we respond to this world they made. It could be a giant experiment in consciousness, creativity, maybe even seeing if something totally new emerges.
Whoa, okay, now that is a thought. So we're not just rats in a maze, but like active participants in this huge cosmic experiment, and they're out there watching, learning from what we do.
Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
It makes you think about these simulators. Are they watching us because they're fascinated?
Yeah.
Or are they just cold, you know, collecting data? Or maybe there's something we can't even imagine. Like their motivations are totally beyond us.
Back to that ant thing again.
Yeah. We might never truly get them.
But hey, doesn't mean we can't try to figure it out, right? Let our imaginations go wild and see what happens.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday we'll have actual proof that we're in a simulation or that we're not. Until then, it's this awesome journey of exploration, right? A reminder that the universe is full of mysteries we might never solve.
It's kind of humbling, to think we might just be this tiny part of something way bigger and more complicated than we can even grasp. But even if we never know for sure, just thinking about it can change how we see things. It makes you appreciate how weird and beautiful our existence is, simulated or not.
Mm,
And maybe it pushes us to live better, more deliberate lives.
totally. I mean, in the end, whether we're in a simulation or not, that's a pretty good lesson to learn. It's not about
Yep.
finding all the answers. It's about asking the right questions, expanding our minds, questioning everything, embracing the mystery.
So, to everyone listening, keep thinking about this stuff, keep asking those questions, and if you ever find what looks like a glitch in the matrix, let us know. We're always ready to dive into the next mind blowing mystery. Until next time.